Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the 4th episode of Not Another Digital Marketing Podcast, brought to you by First Page. This week we have a special episode because it's only First Page Singapore coming to you as we invite a special guest into the studio today. We don't necessarily have a studio. What we do have is a meeting room that's made up to look like a studio. Miss Sarah Quay, how are you?
I'm great today. How about you?
I am excited because, well, first of all, as we're doing this, it's Friday, number one. Number two, it's because today is the release of the next album from BTS.
Woo!
Called B, right? That's what
Yeah,
it's called.
so
Map
exciting.
of the Soul B.
Yeah, it's coming out in a few hours actually, I think.
Yeah, so by the time any of you that are watching or listening to this podcast, it will actually be out. And their first single will have dropped as well, right? So that's why we're going to be talking about BTS today, of all people.
Yes.
And we promise that we're not going to fangirl. Well,
Not too much.
Yes, not too much, right? We're not going to fangirl too much about BTS today. What we are going to do is we're going to look at them through the lens of marketing, okay? We're going to try and understand their success, as marketers. We're going to try and understand their approach, their strategy and everything, and put that into a digestible set of information that those of you that are listening right now would be able to follow, right? I mean, that's the goal. We'd make no promises to not fangirl a little bit along the way. I think that's fair, right?
We'll try our best not to.
We'll try our best not to.
Try. The key is in try.
All right. So for all three of you, that are listening right now who don't know who BTS are, Sarah, who are BTS?
Okay, so I'm really excited about this, and I'm gonna try my best to pronounce their full name, the full name of the group in Korean. So BTS actually stands for Bangtan Sonyeondan. Did I pronounce it correctly?
I think so. I mean, I don't speak Korean, so I'm not entirely sure how much authority I have in that respect. But go on.
Well, okay, I did my best there. So let me introduce the members. So there are 7 of them, 4 vocalists, and 3 rappers. So we have Jin, who's the oldest, Sugar, the second oldest, J-Hope, RM, Jimin, V, and Jungkook. And so far they have released around 8 studio albums. So not just in Korean, but you have songs in Japanese and English as well. Only one English song, right? Dynamite.
Yeah, so far.
Yeah.
Well, all the songs, I think most of the songs have English lyrics in them, but they're not classified as full English songs. And, going on a little bit further, for those of you that don't know, again, who the members are, we know these names might not mean anything to you, but they have, of the 4 vocalists, the vocalists themselves are Jin, Jimin, V, and Jungkook, and the rappers are Suga, J-Hope, and RM. RM, of course, is the group leader, and for those of you that are wondering what RM stands for, it's Rap Monster. Right, it's a nickname he adopted for himself when he was younger because people were so impressed with how good he was at rapping that he thought that's a good nickname. He's tried to leave it right now because he says it reminds him of a cringy youth, but he still goes by the initials RM. Okay, so as we mentioned earlier at the top of the show, B is coming out today, November 20th, 2020. And it's set to be released in a couple of hours as we record this. Now, to put BTS into a bit more of a context as to why we feel that they're a topic worth covering, let's just talk about some of their records, okay?
Yes.
Just to illustrate just how amazing and how big they are. First of all, they hold the world record for the most views for a music video in 24 hours, right? Which was Dynamite at 1.1 million views in just 24 hours. They also just recently broke the record for the fastest music video to reach 600 million views, also for Dynamite, which was a record that was achieved on November 18th, 2020, right? Just a few days ago. They are the first non-English speaking act to debut at number 1 on the Billboard 200 in over 12 years with the Love Yourself Tear album. They're also the first ever Korean music act to hold number 1 and number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 singles chart with Dynamite and Savage Love. They're also the only music group in history, aside from the Beatles, to have 3 albums in the Billboard Top 200 Top 10, I think. Is that Billboard 200 Top 10. Did I say that right? Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I think
you
I
did.
said that right. Yeah. They also have 6.8 billion views on YouTube and have cracked the top 30 of YouTube's most viewed artists. They also hold steady at number 1 on Spotify's daily global top 50 chart. And they're also the first ever Korean music video to top US charts as well. They also have a Guinness World Record for the best-selling album in South Korea with 4.1 million copies sold in just the span of 9 days, right? So, that's just some of the records, right? I think we had to leave out quite a few.
Yeah, the list is really enormous. In fact, I expect the list to continue even, as B is being released later today. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how many other records they continue to break.
And speaking of records, they also have probably the largest fandom ever in music history.
Which both of us are in.
Which is known as ARMY, which stands for Adorable Representative MC for Youth. We both suspected that this is a Google Translate thing, but never mind. We'll dive a little bit more into ARMY later because this is a fan phenomenon that the likes of which the world has never ever seen before. Right, so that's our introduction to BTS. Let's talk a little bit about breaking down, their marketing success. Okay, so we're gonna approach this like we always approach, any other marketing campaign. We're gonna break it down in terms that I think hopefully you listeners and you viewers out there will be able to go along with us as we try and identify what makes their success just so amazing, right? So we're going to start by doing something that we always do whenever we try and figure out what we're doing with the campaign, and that's the big idea. What is the key message that drives all of BTS's marketing? And I'll let you take the lead on this one, Sarah.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, so the big idea, I think when we talk about marketing, I think it's always important to have a big idea, and this big idea should be something that is consistently expressed in all your other marketing messages and all that.
Yep.
So for BTS, interestingly, I can probably sum up their key message in just one hyphenated word, which is self-love. Ideas about speaking your truth, loving yourself, knowing that it's okay to fail because failing is part and parcel of life. And they have created their brand identity based on self-love with key messages about self-love in their songs. And they've also written, a lot of lyrics that it's very encouraging, that always encourages people to love themselves for who they are, in spite of all their flaws. And these messages
starts with their music, right? It starts with their music where they start speaking their truth and they start, preaching, loving yourself. It always starts with the music, right? And that's their core product, I suppose. That's what you call it? Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, so, music aside, I think, the concept of loving yourself is actually being upfront about who you are as a person and being comfortable enough to showcase that side of yourself, which they have done so by humanizing themselves in various, unscripted variety shows like my favorite program, Run BTS, as well as Bon Voyage and In the Soup. So, these series actually, the band is really just being themselves and attempting to do interesting activities.
To put it mildly, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty entertaining actually. Yeah, but not only does it really, tickle their audience, but it definitely lets, ARMY really see the band members for who they truly are. And I think that in itself, it's kind of in line with their, messages of self-love and just being true to yourself.
I think it's interesting because I'm a fan of Run BTS as well. I've seen quite a few episodes myself, and the one thing that you the boys are really funny.
Yeah,
right?
they
They
are.
are absolutely hilarious. All seven of them are comedians to some degree, right? My favorite is Jin, of course, because he's got the best one-liners.
Yeah, his grandfather jokes, right?
Yeah, he's got grandfather, and being a dad myself, I'm just like, I identify with the grandfather and the dad jokes, so it's awesome. And this is them humanizing themselves, right? And speaking their truth and loving themselves in the public eye, right? And I think this is a key thing about their brand that other brands should also be able to understand is that they love themselves, they speak their truth, they aren't they don't have a curated image. This is really who they are, right? They have been honest and authentic about themselves from day one. And what you see is what you get with them, and I think that's something that we marketers could definitely learn more.
Yeah, I think definitely in marketing, I think we've always gone with this idea of being personal with your target audience. And I think for BTS, the fact that, their variety programs are unscripted, people see them for who they truly are.
Yeah.
And I think that, once you create this idea of sincerity and authenticity, it really does help you connect with your target audience because it kind of shows them that you're human also.
Yeah.
I have not seen any other celebrity break things as much as RM does.
God of destruction.
Yeah.
So and when we talk about the music as well with their authenticity, right? I mean, they've talked about some pretty. I mean, it's not just about speaking. It's not about just loving yourself when you speak your truth, right? Because obviously, speaking your truth and saying that this is who you are and you deserve love, that sort of stuff. They've also talked about some really deep and dark stuff, haven't they?
Yeah, and quite a lot of these things are actually pretty relatable. Actually, for example, dealing with haters and critics. We had
the Cypher series.
Yes, we had the rappers actually. I think there were around 4 parts of Cypher, right?
Cypher 1 to 4, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it was ideas about how to deal with haters and loving yourself in spite of that, which I believe we can all relate to.
Yeah.
I think we live in a society that's pretty judgmental, so you can do 1,000 good things and there's always going to be somebody who has something bad to say about that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And they've also dealt with issues like body image and self-esteem, like Jin's solo Epiphany,
I
which
really identify with that, to be
yeah,
honest with you.
it's one of your favorite songs, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like those issues with self-esteem and body image are things that I've struggled with since I was a kid, and then to have one of my favorite artists actually verbalize the things that I've gone through, probably better. I don't recall any of the English language boy bands that I listened to growing up actually having this sort of introspective stuff. I did the alternative rock for sure, yeah, but in this space, in the pop space, to have these sort of deep topics being dealt with so openly is quite a change.
Yeah, definitely. I think I was pretty involved in the emo scene, My Chemical Romance. Yeah, but I've never really encountered any other band that really delivers these messages and gives you not really a solution but comforts you with their music. Yeah.
And speaking of which, we come from very different backgrounds, right?
Do we? Do we?
I think we do. Yeah. I mean, first of all, different countries. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And whatnot. There's an age gap as well between Sarah and I. But here's the thing: we both are huge fans of BTS, and so when it comes to the next part of the marketing, when you're doing a marketing strategy, you're like, okay, we have our big idea. Who's our target audience, right? Who are we hoping to reach with this idea, with this message? Okay. And the thing about BTS is that their target market doesn't necessarily cut across simple demographic lines that we in marketing would easily identify. You talk about age groups, for example. We're not of the same age group, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? We talk about, gender, right? Age groups and gender. And clearly, obviously, we're not of the same gender. In spite of how emo I might be or how my propensity for crying. We also might not necessarily look at, say, geographical locations. Again, we come from 2 different places, right? So the normal segmentations that you would normally apply for target audiences don't necessarily apply to BTS. You would look at, say, they're a boy band, so, teenage girls, young adults, that sort of stuff. But I'm 36. There are fans on YouTube who talk, who talk about BTS, being huge fans of BTS, and they're in their 70s and 80s, traveling across the world back when we still had concerts and we still had air travel. #missed. And these people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s flying across the world to see BTS in concert and joining in, that. So you can't pigeonhole them into traditional target audience segmentation, right? So honestly, then let's try and answer this question right now. Who is BTS's target audience?
I think there's no one-liner to really answer this question.
Oh, marketers love one-liners. Come on, you can try, Sarah. Well, let's do a one-liner. You're a writer, you're a marketer. Surely you can give me one line that says, who is BTS's target audience?
Well, I think... Oh, I need to think about this, but I would probably say that their main target audience would probably be people in general who are struggling in life somehow. Like, and when I say struggling in life, I mean like issues like self-esteem, figuring out who you are as a young adult, or maybe just, you know, teenagers who might be struggling with their identity or struggling with hormones. Yeah, that sort of stuff. So yeah, interestingly, I think their target audience has really evolved with them also.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when I think their earlier album, Dark and Wild, well, I mean, they were teens and they did sing a lot of songs about, you know, unrequited love.
Oh, this girl's hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy in love.
Yeah, I kind of wish I was that girl, but hey, I can only dream, right? Yeah, and then you have albums like Wings and Love Yourself, which really appealed to me as a young adult because I think I can speak for most millennials when I say that after graduating from university, that is the time where you don't know who you are and, you know, people are succeeding in life and here you are just, you know, trying to apply for a job. And I feel like if I did discover BTS maybe like 4 years ago, I felt like their songs would have really connected with me, as I'm sure their songs connect with many young adults right now, especially this year, who might be having a bit of trouble in, you know, figuring out who they are. And you have Map of the Soul 7, who, you know, appeals to, I think, people like you and me who are figuring out their way in life.
Now
and,
we're the same, huh? Okay.
Yeah, kind of, and sort of dealing with, you know, the pressures of adulting, like dealing with stress and how you should tackle those challenges head on. Yeah, so I mean, throughout their albums, you can see different ideas, but one thing remains consistent, which is their branding message of self-love. You know,
and
like
speaking their truth.
Yeah, and
which is funny because like if you go through those albums that you talked about earlier, right? Like Dark and Wild, their truth was basically teenage boys, you know, just checking out hot girls all the time and just being like, hey, you know, that was their truth at the time. You know? And then their truth when it was on Wings and Love Yourself was that they didn't love themselves enough, right? That was their truth, and they wanted to love themselves more, and they wanted everybody along for the ride. Whereas Map of the Soul, their truth at this time were, you know, if we look at songs like Black Swan, for example, we look at swans. We look at songs like On. There you go. Yeah. I can't England very well today. You look at these songs and they speak to their fears, right? On is about bringing on the pain, but then also the fear of whether or not you have the strength to deal with pain. Black Swan is about the fear of dealing with falling out of love with something that is so fundamental to their identity. In this case, their love for music, right? And you see that this key message, this brand values are always represented in all of the work that they do, right? And then we go on, interestingly, to then talk about how the target audience has evolved, right? I think that journey that we talked about, going from, you know, from being, I suppose when you're a teenager, you're very self-centered in some ways, right? And then when you get to young adulthood, you're doubtful about your place in the world, because that's when you realize how little you know about the world out there. Right? And you start realizing that your place in the world, far from you being the center of the universe, you start realizing that sometimes you're just a speck of dust in the cosmos suspended in a sunbeam. Right? And then you go to Map of the Soul, where you're aware of your place in the world and you started to come to grips with who you are, but then you fear. This is like, you know, at a time when you start fearing, you know, the person that you're becoming, or the person that you've become, or what you could be. Right? And honestly, this journey doesn't just happen in teenagehood all the way to young adulthood. I'm someone in my mid-30s, and for me, it's like there are days where I feel like I am the center of the universe, and go back to my teenage self. There are days where I realize just how young and small I am, and then there are days where I truly fear who I am or who I might be. So I think that shows that the target audience isn't just necessarily, you know, an age group or you know, a gender, that kind of stuff. I think okay, I'm gonna go on a limb and say that their target audience, you know, are people who are aware that they're on a journey. Yeah. Right? And they're on this journey of self-discovery and self-love and self-actualization. And honestly, that cuts across age, that cuts across demographics, that cuts across income, that cuts across you know, cultural and linguistic differences. You know, that's something that everyone can identify with. And BTS is, you know, it's very simple. It's like, if you're on a journey and you're on a journey similar to us, come along for the ride. And next thing you know, there's 20 million people that are coming along for this particular ride.
Yeah, interestingly, I think that, you know, you don't have to be in the same demographic. You don't have to be in the same country. You don't even have to be, you know, of the same gender or identify with the same gender to, like BTS, but I feel like for them, their target audience transcends all of that. In fact, I feel like they've built this collective awareness in a sense.
That's a good word, awareness. Collective awareness. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, marketing word.
So, so now we figured it out. We've got their big idea, their key message. We know who their target audience is, right? So what do we do next if we're doing this in marketing?
Well, we have to think about how we deliver those messages to the target audience.
All right. So what's the word? Channels.
Marketing channels.
Yes, we got to figure out the channels. We got to figure out, obviously we have the content, right? We've got the music, we've got all that stuff that humanizes them, the scripted, the unscripted reality shows, all that stuff. What sort of channels are we looking at, right? So let's take a top line look at this. Again, marketing words. Let's take a top line look at this and like sort of identify and try and place what their channels are. Okay. Okay. Do you want to start or should I go?
Sure, I can do it. Okay.
Go on, you can. Yeah.
I will probably start with the most marketing friendly channel, which is none other than social media, which I believe we have spoken about social media in the previous podcast. Yeah.
The social dilemma,
Yeah, well, for BTS, I believe, social media has been key in their success because it's kind of a non-traditional form of marketing for musicians. Like you have musicians going on, live shows and maybe like singing live on the radio and all that. And to them, that's a form of marketing. Whereas BTS, interestingly, started off on Twitter, where they had, I believe, the largest Twitter fan base.
For any music group, I think.
Yeah. So, well, that was when they were still pretty, I think that was a couple of years ago, right?
For what?
Twitter.
Twitter? No, I think they've had Twitter for a while. But I would say that, just to contextualize your comment even further, right? Is that like, it's not just Twitter where they've found success on social media, right? I think like if we're going to look at social media and say, it's very easy to use it as a blanket term, but we also need to understand that different social media platforms have different sort of, inclinations, right? So different quirks, for example. You wouldn't put, for example, a 1 hour live stream on Twitter. It's not going to work, right? But it would work on, say, somewhere like VLive, right? Or somewhere on like YouTube or even Twitch, for example, right? Obviously, BTS themselves are on Twitch, if I'm not mistaken. So, we can look at like what social platforms are they on right now, right? And what are they doing with each of them?
Okay. Yeah. So Twitter, I'll start with that first.
Yeah, go on.
Well, that one is the one where, they share their daily life, like selfies, birthday blessings and all that. And they are also active on Weverse, which I believe is an app created by Big Hit themselves. Yeah. Well, it's similar to Twitter, but they are more active on Weverse in replying to fans. Yeah. And you have VLive, which I think is the platform that I'm on the most, just because Run BTS is always published on VLive, which not only can you watch their variety shows, but they also do live streams, like answering their fan questions in real time. And you have, YouTube Bangtan TV, which is, I believe, not affiliated with Big Hit's main channel, where you can find behind the scenes footage, maybe the members just teasing each other during practice time. And you can also find their dance practices, if I'm not wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah. So clearly here we can see, like, we have there are 4 different distinct platforms here that 5 if you include 6 if you include Instagram and Facebook, right?
Yeah.
So Twitter and Instagram, they use these to put up the selfies and like the album promos and whatnot, right? And then just a little bit of it's more pictorial based. I think they don't necessarily put a lot of video on both of these platforms, right? And Weverse is again similar to Twitter, right, in this respect, but it's like fully, it's geared towards a Korean speaking audience, right, more than anything, and then we have VLive and YouTube, where they have their live streams and whatnot, their behind the scenes stuff, the reality shows, all of that interesting footage that humanizes them even more. So you can see here, if we were to then look at it. And of course, let's talk about Facebook. Facebook in this case is they put up a lot of links on Facebook, to articles, and they occasionally put some selfies, right? So I feel like, strictly speaking, putting my marketing hat on, that they're not really doing much with Facebook at this moment in time. It's just sort of like a platform for replication. But looking at the roaring success that they've had on the other platforms, we can sort of like put them into different buckets, right, of what they're supposed to do. So Twitter and Weverse clearly are meant for digestible small bite-sized, BTS chunks.
Yeah,
so to
basically
speak.
for people
Yeah.
who have short attention spans.
Yeah, which is basically everybody on social media.
Yeah, probably.
But we can see here that the content on Twitter and Weverse is bite-sized. It's easily digestible. It's something that you can just quickly like or retweet or leave a reply below. It's quick and easy, and it's not difficult to understand what's going on these two platforms, right? Whereas on VLive and YouTube, you have the more long form content, right?
Yeah.
Where you want people to stay and watch, right? So you don't want quick and easy stuff. You don't put selfies on VLive. You don't put selfies on YouTube's community tab for in terms of what BTS are doing. This is where the long form content is, right? The shortest videos that I know that are on YouTube, for example, Bangtan TV, are 5 minutes, right? Those are the shortest pieces of content that they have on their Bangtan TV channel. On VLive, you'll struggle to find anything shorter than 10 minutes, right? On VLive, right? These are long-form content pieces. Now, we always think social media is this platform where it's like quick and easy all the time, right? But there is clearly a desire for long-form content, right? Which BTS has tapped into with their live streams, with their behind-the-scenes footage, with their 50-minute episodes of Run BTS, which have apparently really high viewing completion rates across all videos, right? Because they have such an engaged fan base. So I think, again, this is something, the lesson here is quite simple. It's like you need to have content that is suitable for the platform that you're on. I mean, plenty of brands that we know, right, like to just replicate content everywhere. It's like, oh, okay, this thing works on Instagram. Let's put it on YouTube. Let's put it on the YouTube community tab. Let's put it on Facebook. Let's put it on Twitter. Let's put it on LinkedIn, and let's see how it goes, right?
Yeah.
And we try to counsel against this, because this is proof more than anything that you need to optimize your content strategy for the platform that you're hoping to put all this content on. And it's nice to see this stuff in action and to sort of
Definitely.
confirm what we've always suspected all along. Okay, so brands out there, short and sweet works sometimes. Long form also works sometimes. The key is knowing when to do what.
Yeah. I think the lesson for marketers here especially is that it's good to have consistency as far as brand messaging is concerned. But when it comes to the actual content creation side of things, not everything will fit. There's no one size fits all in marketing. And I think that for you, Rafie, you've been doing marketing for years and you should know that. So
Just the 1 year, but yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I guess the idea here that we can learn is that, marketing, it's good to have consistent messages, but you have to understand the nature of the people on each platform
Correct.
you are publishing on. Well, I mean, no one's going to read an essay on Twitter anyway. So, yeah.
It depends on how good the essay is, though.
Yeah.
But then,
Well-
that's a subset of a subset of a subset of a niche. So
Well, it's more about tweaking your content, based on what will be optimized for each particular channel, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, so now we've looked at, say, social media as one of their channels, right? And obviously within that channel is other channels as well. So maybe social media as a pillar, right? As a pillar of their marketing, right? What would then be the next pillar that we would normally then go into?
It starts with C and it is collaboration.
Yes. Okay. So for those of you that wonder what we mean by collaboration, it goes by other names naturally. Sometimes we call it influencer marketing. Sometimes we call it, I think it's just influencers and
probably.
collaboration. But let's not think about too many fancy words. And this is interesting. Okay, when we talked about this, pre-show about how they use collaboration as a marketing tool. Obviously, it's placed under the guise of music collaborations to spread their music even further. But that doesn't negate the fact that these are also amazing marketing. It's an amazing effort in marketing outreach, right? So let's look at some of the collaborations that they've done and what the effect has had on them. Okay, so let's start off with, this one's my favorite. Like one of my favorite collaborations that they've done. Chicken Noodle Soup, J-Hope and Becky G, which honestly has probably raised their profile in the Latino community, as well as with hip hop fans stateside, with their reimagining of Chicken Noodle Soup. To me, this is just wow. I would have never thought this collaboration was possible at all in a million years, but J-Hope and Becky G made it work. right? And it brought them into an entirely new audience, right? And let's talk about this collaboration, which I know you want to talk about.
Yes,
yeah,
I
your
really
lips
do.
are like quivering already. You see, yeah, Dana can see the lips are quivering. Our production producer today, Dana, is with us in the studio. Hi, Dana. No, you can't see her. She's not on any of the cameras, but that's cool. But you want to talk about this next?
Yes, I definitely do. Thank you. Well, this was, I think, the song that really got me into their music. Well, that's because it was playing on the radio like all day when it first came out, and I loved it. Well, it is actually none other than Boy With Love. Which was a collaboration with BTS and American pop singer Halsey,
Yep.
who has, I believe she has performed live like numerous times, especially at the Victoria's Secret fashion show also, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think this song was what really got me into their music, and it really helped them, reach
the American pop music,
Yeah.
essentially, right? And
Yeah.
and it also, brought them to the attention of Halsey's fans as well.
Yeah.
Again, a collaboration you never would have thought would have worked, but here it is, and it's working, right? And we can also talk about, say, Make It Right and Who, songs that they collaborated with Love. Okay, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce Love, Love,
Love.
Lauv, right? Which is brings them into the LGBT community. So it's like all these collaborations, from a music perspective, obviously introduces them to new markets, so to
Yep.
speak, or new market segments, right? But it also introduces them to new followers and
Yes.
new fans, right? And that's just amazing to behold. Now, when we talk about collaborations as well, we also we don't necessarily see these as collaborations, right? But there are opportunities for BTS to actually make new fans through collaborations via public appearances,
Yeah.
right? And let's talk about late night talk shows, right? Let's talk about their appearances at let's mention these American Music Awards show appearances. Let's talk about their appearances on these editorial outlets, BuzzFeed, NME, Noisy, all these things. All these things come together to give them a platform to reach out to audiences that they might not have been able to reach out to before. I mean, they've made appearances on all of the late night talk shows in the US. Colbert, Kimmel, Fallon,
James Corden.
I
think there are too many to name.
too many to name. They've made appearances on all of them. And the thing is that in the true spirit of collaboration, right? People who wouldn't ordinarily watch these late night shows are now following these late night shows because BTS introduced them to it. Like, their Korean fan base, for example, who would never have known in a million years what carpool karaoke with James Corden is, right? They would now then know who they are. So this is like, if we were to pull back a bit and then look at this from a marketing perspective, right? What makes a good collaboration, right? We can clearly see here that both parties benefit. Okay, if you look at J-Hope and Becky G, for example, with Chicken Noodle Soup, you'll see that, obviously their Korean fan base would get to know Becky G, right? This is amazing Latina singer who's got quite the vocal chops and everything, and on the flip side, you have Becky G's fans from the American Latino community, being introduced to BTS, a Korean language group, right? And J-Hope specifically. So this is like what we need to understand is a key part of what makes a good collaboration where both partners benefit, right? And we often see that plenty of brands go into collaborations not necessarily understanding what is the benefit of their collaborators, but only seeing the benefits for themselves. Yeah. And where BTS shows us the way is that we need to be mindful of partnerships where both parties can benefit from that, right? And let's face it, like these late night talk shows, for example, they also serve another purpose, right? Which is to humanize them even further, right? When you see them on Fallon playing Subway Olympics,
Yeah.
right?
And you see Jimin cheating.
Yeah, you see.
I saw that, Jimin.
Yeah, but then the thing is that this is just an extension of what they do on Run BTS. The silly games that they play on Run BTS, for example, they're doing it Subway Olympics, right? And then when Suga goes on V Live to play songs and do song requests, after he's just started to learn how to play guitar, right? To show that he has music tastes outside of whatever he does in BTS, then you see them doing carpool karaoke with James Corden and be like, oh, they can sing along to Bruno Mars, they can sing along to
Cardi B also.
they can sing along to
Post Malone, right?
Post Malone, yeah. So it's an extension of what they already are, but in a new space, right? And again, goes back to them being consistent with their messaging, and also them showing the value of a truly equal and fair collaboration, right? So
well said, Rafie.
Yeah. That 1 year of marketing really helped. And when we talk about appearances as well, I think there's 2 appearances here that are not part of the traditional like late night show and stuff like that, right? So these appearances, I'm gonna let you talk about these, right? But I'm gonna headline them and give them some context, okay? In 2018 and 2020, right, BTS made 3 appearances, right? Or 3, you could say, did 3 things, right? That really possibly elevated their profile higher than it has ever been before, right? I'm talking, of course, about their appearances at the UN in 2018 and 2020, as well as their direct address to the graduating class of 2020 via their Dear Class of 2020 content. Sarah, you look like you're gonna cry.
I'm trying not to.
But then let's look at this objectively, right? And let's just discuss the impact of these things from a marketing perspective.
Okay.
What was so important about the UN speeches? Let's start with that.
Okay, let's go. Well, so UN was probably, I think, one of the biggest events for them. If you look at it from a marketing perspective, I think UN was really the one that helped them drive awareness about ideas about self-love, because they did do 2 speeches, and both of those speeches were in line with ideas of self-love. And I quote RM, we have to learn to love ourselves, so now I urge you to speak yourself. And similarly, Jin mentioned in their most recent speech in 2020 that cherishing yourself, encouraging yourself, and keeping yourself happy are the most important. And I think
so this goes back again to their main message, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, speak your truth, love yourself, and it goes back to that.
Yeah, and I think, for somebody who probably hasn't heard about them, well, I definitely have heard of the United Nations before. Yeah, so I will be at first intrigued if I received word that a Korean boy group was going to be speaking at making a speech in front of them. And I mean, I think that was
you'd tune in just for the novelty factor alone, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's like, hey, I want to see, what makes these guys so special. Why are they, getting this opportunity to speak on, to the United Nations? I think these 2 speeches were really pivotal for them to drive awareness about their messages. So I'm gonna talk about the next one that really it was probably more.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Okay, I'll try.
We're running short on time, but
I'll try not to get emotional about it. But it is the Dear Class of 2020 speech that directly addressed the global graduating class of 2020. Because as you know, because of the pandemic and health restrictions, we haven't really been able to have mass events like commencement ceremonies. So the band actually performed, I believe, 3 songs, and they each, delivered comforting messages to youth who are about to, start on adulthood.
Yeah.
And with, self-love again as the main theme of all their messages. And, addressing, their target audience, like the youth who are graduating, I believe really helped them build that connection with the youth, because, throughout their speeches, they did talk about their own personal struggles with identity, with growing up, and saying that, it's gonna be okay. Shit happens.
Yeah.
Basically, but you have to learn to take your hands off what you can't control, as what Sugar said.
Yep.
And learn to go with the flow, and also remind yourself that, life goes on, and we definitely need to move on from hardship.
Yeah. So these again go back to their themes of speaking your truth and self-love, right? Again, Joyce just showing the consistency of message across all of their content and their platforms. Now, we don't have time to talk about all the other stuff that they do outside of the music, right? I mean, they have other projects, BTS World, for example, which is a mobile game. They have Tiny Tan, they have BT21, there's a multitude of things that they do outside of this. We don't have time to cover all of them. But, all of these things are, again, extensions of who they are, extensions of their brand message, extensions of their big idea of self-love, speaking your truth and loving yourself. So yeah, we're not going to cover that. I just That's enough for a podcast on its own. Now, we're running a bit over time here, so we're going to try and quicken the pace a little bit. Let's talk about, okay, we have a specific section here we want to talk about ARMY, okay, which is, adorable representative for MC, of MC youth. I think that's what it's called, right? This is the fandom of BTS, right? Which, rough estimate is somewhere in the region of, 10 to 15 million at this moment in time. Based on some metrics that were calculated by Koreabu on fan activity and social mentions. Okay, so that's just a rough estimate, and these are people who are just basically insane fans, right, of BTS. Now, ARMY is special in terms of fandoms simply because, and there's no way to go about this, ARMY probably does 80% of all of BTS's marketing, right? We talk about all the stuff that BTS does. Initially, with the social media platforms, with their multi-channel strategy and whatnot, their content across different mediums and whatnot. But there's one thing that BTS doesn't do that plenty of bands do, and that's something that we know as retargeting, for example, right? So if you're shown a piece of content from BTS and you don't click on it, it doesn't show up on your feed again as a sponsored post and asking for your engagement, right? Because most of the time the fans will do it for you. That's the advantage that they have. And that's what ARMY has, right? I mean, Sarah, why don't you share with us a little bit about, how ARMY distinguishes itself from other fandoms?
Okay. Well, it's pretty mind-blowing actually, the kind of projects that ARMY has done for BTS. I remember one it was Jimin's birthday actually, and I believe some Indonesian army actually planted some trees, if I'm not wrong, to celebrate his birthday. And BTS really has attributed its success to ARMY. To quote Jin, he says that it is because ARMY exists that we exist. And one of the things they do in particular that I believe really helps drive more awareness towards BTS and is really so tantamount in their success is setting goals for them. For example, comeback goals. And the most recent one was actually trying to get Dynamite to top various charts like Apple Music, Spotify, and iTunes. Well, the Korean Boo actually stated that people thought that these goals were impossible, but ARMY really did make it happen. Yeah, and ARMYs are not just fan members sharing posts about BTS on Facebook, but they also organize activities like planning events, even raising funds for lower income fans who can't afford to maybe buy the BTS concert tickets, and also moderating social media groups, which I am in quite a lot of them. Yeah, and also they do have responsibilities like streaming the group's songs to show support, especially when they are first produced. And well, as I said, organizing events like even volunteer translating. Yeah, well, we really need that because we can't speak Korean.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I guess this form of marketing done by fans is proof that it's important for brands to create a loyal community. And well, BTS didn't actually create ARMY per se, but ARMY is more of a byproduct of their marketing strategies and their organic relationship with their fans because BTS continues to engage with ARMY, continues to reply their messages on Weverse, and
consistent engagement, that's the thing.
So, and also I believe BTS has continued to be loyal to ARMY as ARMY has continued to be loyal to BTS. So it's like a two-way street here. BTS has always thanked ARMY in their speeches. They always address ARMY, and I think this always shows humility and gratitude. And these humility and gratitude really drive loyalty and trust. Because when you show a customer that you appreciate them, that you attribute their work to your success, I believe it makes your customer, well, I mean, I will feel good about myself if I know that it's because of my effort that I could make you successful. Similarly, for ARMYs, I believe they're always proud of themselves whenever goals are met. And I think having a shared ambition, having a shared collective identity, it definitely brings people together. And especially when targets are met, we get this sense of accomplishment. It's like, hey, we did it. We managed to top the chart again. So I guess new ARMYs especially feel this sense of belonging, whereas older ARMYs who have been following BTS for maybe a bit longer will feel even more empowered to continue to get the group even bigger than what they are today.
I think that's a key thing to note, though. Like, empower. I think that's a good word, right? Like, BTS empowers their fans, right? To really share in the experience that their music starts off. The music is the start of the experience, because once you listen to the music, right, if you are emotionally invested in it in any way, the natural inclination is to look for your community, right? Who else loves this music as much as I do? Who loves the message in the music as much as I do? And so you go out and you seek, a community, right? And in this case, you find ARMY, right? And the uniqueness of what ARMY does is that, like you said, it's a partnership, right? That's for sure. But it's also, it's a logical extension, right, of a concept in marketing that we like to call brand evangelicals or brand advocates, right? These people will do your marketing for you, right? And that is like the unicorn, the holy grail for marketers, to have such an engaged fan base that they do most of their marketing for you, right? We understand in marketing terms these days that probably user testimonials, right, or user reviews matter more than, say, mainstream media, right? When it comes to authenticity, right, or trust, because we know for a fact that there have been brands out there who have engaged in activities such as doing paid reviews, for their products and whatnot, creating this trust deficit between brands and their customers, right, or brands and their followers. So they turn to, Amazon reviews, for example. They turn to Lazada reviews, Shopee reviews to see, is this product any good? Can I trust, the marketing that's being said here, right? And more often than not, people are driven more by their buying decisions, have their buying decisions driven by, people that they're familiar with, that they know, right? Rather than things from, the mainstream media, right? So, we can see this with ARMY as well. Like, more often than not, you get involved with BTS, or you learn about BTS from someone that you know, right? They might be annoying at first. I know that for a fact, right? And so they get involved in that from the very beginning, and it might be annoying at first, right? But then it's, at some point, there's going to be at least one song that's going to interest you, and then you're going to go online, you're going to try and Google their names, and then that's it. You've fallen down the rabbit hole. That's how it started with me. I heard a cover of "Fake Love" by G Idol, and and I was like, okay, let's this sounds pretty good. Okay, who's the original group? BTS. Okay, I think I've heard of them. My daughter likes them. Okay.
It starts with finding out what their names are.
Googling their names,
Yeah.
From there. Or uphill.
Yeah, sometimes you don't even need to Google, because you just need to scroll down to the comments, and then people will start, listing out the members.
But then you see, that's like, that's an amazing experience, being part of that particular fandom, where you see this thing happening, and it's happening to you in real time as you're experiencing. As a marketer, I was like, word of mouth, user testimonials, elicit more trust than any other form of testimonial out there or review. And there I am, falling prey to this exact same journey, this marketing funnel journey.
I guess that's what you mean when you say curiosity really is tantamount in marketing. Like, all it needs is just somebody to pique your interest, and then you will fall down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. And like, once, now that you've become part of ARMY, you really are part of the marketing machine, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, from a strictly marketing perspective, ARMY is one more cog in the marketing machine that is BTS. Let's be very dispassionate here and objective about it, right? They drive awareness about everything, about comebacks, about offline activities. They do the heavy lifting in terms of introducing members into the fandom. When you go online and you find out about these things, they organize gatherings, they do social justice, all in the not for BTS per se. They're not working for BTS, but they're doing this in partnership with BTS. So it's like they're doing so much of the heavy lifting that we would normally see in other marketing campaigns, be under retargeting, be under trying to revive inactive customers, automated email campaigns, for example. It's like somebody who hasn't clicked on on something of yours in like 6 months, you send them an email saying, hey, this is our discount voucher, please come in. So all of these things that normally brands would do, right, ARMY does on its own and out of its own free will, right?
Yeah.
And this is a unique situation where they have created these brand evangelicals, these brand advocates, that essentially do 80% of all of BTS's marketing.
Yeah, I think I can share this story, but I was in a fan group on Facebook who were actually hiring for moderators. Well, I tried to apply, but when I realized that the commitment was a bit too much for me, I decided not to go with it. But it's pretty amazing to see how people are willing to do the work to sort of spread awareness about BTS and their message without even being paid.
Yeah.
Like, these positions were not paid positions,
Yeah.
but they will still do it willingly for BTS because they really believe in their brand message and they really want these boys to succeed. And I think from a marketer's perspective, I think that's everyone strives for. That's what every brand wants, to build such a loyal fan base that they are willing to, go the extra mile for you just for your music and to promote you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have definitely gone way over time. So we're going to try and wrap this up with our final segment, basically just distilling everything that we've talked about in the last 50 minutes into, I guess, a few digestible, easy to understand points. Okay, so what can we learn from BTS success? Okay, I'm going to start with this. Very easy. From day one, you need to establish your big idea and be consistent with your brand messaging and your brand values. That's it. That's the lesson that we can learn here. From day one till day N+1, the BTS have always talked about love yourself, speak your truth, and that's been consistent all the way through. So that's lesson number 1. What's lesson number 2, Sarah?
Okay, lesson number 2, omni-channel marketing is definitely going to be effective for digital marketing, only if it is an optimized strategy for each channel.
Yep.
So as I said just now, there's no one size fits all in marketing. You have to have an optimized strategy for each platform that you use. Yes, you can have, the same big idea, but you have to think about how you can optimize it for your audience on that particular channel.
Okay.
And the final one, let's talk about this because I think this is so important for BTS, which is authenticity and sincerity.
Authenticity and sincerity, and also really important for brands. Honestly, your customers or your followers and you as a brand, it's a two-way street. We have gone past the age of where brands could just put out an ad and then wait for the sales to come in, right? Or it's like, this is our product, this is our proposition. You like it? Yeah, okay, here we go. Maybe here's a little bit of a discount. We're way past that. Now brands and followers need to have conversations, right? It has to be a two-way street, and authenticity and sincerity are by far the most important things in making these conversations, effective. Right?
Yeah, I think with these conversations, you build connections.
Correct.
And when you have connections, you have a community.
Yep.
When you have a community, you have trust. And then everything will just naturally fall into place for them.
And I think one thing also, with this authenticity and sincerity that we didn't mention earlier is that, when brands make mistakes, you need to own up to it, admit that you're in the wrong, and do your best to make up for it, right? Whereas there are plenty of brands who try and hide it, bury the news, and whatnot, pretend it never happened, that sort of thing, and then we contrast that with BTS. Whenever they did something dumb on air or live, they come up with an apology and they're sincere about it. They're like, okay, you know what? We screwed up. We're sorry we did this. We'll promise we're going to try and do better, and we're continuing to grow, right? And that's something that I don't think brands do enough of. This is a key lesson here, that we need to own our mistakes as marketers sometimes. We could have a campaign which sounds like the best campaign in the world, but we might use language that is offensive, to certain groups, that punches down at minorities, or, makes fun of things that we shouldn't be making fun of. We need to own that and say, we're sorry. We promise we're going to do better. We're learning from this, right? And it's much better in that context to be authentic and sincere. You win more fans that way, rather than, doubling down and say, oh, no, everyone else is wrong. We're the ones that are right. Okay,
Well-
so that's it for our episode. Honestly, we went way over time because that's the problem when you talk about BTS.
Yeah,
So
I
much to
think
talk about.
every army can probably relate to us where
Yeah.
we can see we can spend hours talking about BTS.
Definitely, yeah.
So maybe shall we wrap this up?
Let's wrap this up. Okay,
Yeah.
so we talked about in segment one, we gave our introductions to BTS, right? 7 members, four vocalists, 3 rappers. Jin, J-Hope, Suga, RM, Jungkook, Jimin, and V. Right? Yeah, I got all of them. That was in a completely random order, and I was not reading off a paper when I did that. So yeah, completely random. Right? This is who they are. Okay, so we talked about what their marketing strategy would look like. We talked about their big ideas, who their target audience are, what are their marketing channels, what is their approach on each of these marketing channels, their usage of collaborations as a marketing tool to gain awareness in new markets or in new market segments. Their usage of these appearances in talk shows and award shows and editorial outlets as an extension of their collaboration efforts. The importance of their public appearances, such as at the UN and at the Dear Class of 2020. And we've tried our best to summarize the importance of ARMY and the uniqueness of ARMY from a marketing perspective, and how they have contributed towards BTS's success. And last but not least, we tied it all up with 3 very simple and easily digestible points. What can we learn from BTS success? Number 1, be consistent with your branding and your messaging. Number 2, omni-channel marketing is the way to go, and it must be optimized per channel. And number 3, always prioritize authenticity and sincerity. I think we've got everything, right?
Yeah, we got everything.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much, Sarah. It has been a pleasure doing this episode with you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Dana, for hanging out with us today, our production producer. Yeah, that's not a real title, but yeah. Wait, isn't a producer already? Never mind. Thank you very much, Dana. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to today's episode. Be sure to check out Map of the Soul B, which is releasing on the 20th of November, wherever you are. And be sure to check out other episodes in the first page. Not Another Digital Marketing Forecast. And last but not least, Mr. Aaron Radcliffe, we miss you. Hope to see you again in the next episode. That's it from us. Peace out.